social media. One of the things that I do, especially as an instructor, is try to get students to understand what social media is all about. And there's three big ones right now that you really need to kind of pay attention to. One of them is LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is really more of a very professional network. These are connections that can help you find a job. When you go and you take a look at something like Facebook, Facebook is more of a personal thing, and that you can kind of set your own tune and pace. Google Plus is even more generic than Facebook or LinkedIn. Most people don't even ask or know much about G Plus in terms of helping build an image for you being an employee. And that's where this video is going to kind of come in handy to kind of try to help you understand a little bit about how these different social networks work and how you can use them to help you try to find a job. So one of the things you need to really kind of pay attention to is what kind of image you are portraying to the world. If you take a look at my Google Plus profile, a profile that I actually live on, that this is who I say I am on this network, right? That I work at a place called Comics Forge. I've attended University of Maryland College Park, and I live in Seattle. But one of the things that you can kind of take a look at is who am I connected to, what do they do, and how do I portray myself? So we put up little stupid videos like safety dance for men without hats, and put up stupid little pictures of a garden gnome trying to melt down Frosty the Snowman. We talk about patent trolls. We talk about other things. We also do some of my photography. So we sometimes talk about things that may be a little bit weird. Horror movies, books, odd pictures and things that I do, very interesting videos, and all the rest of it. So you can kind of get an idea from this profile that I'm into photography, I'm into video, I do a lot of other things, I'm into communities, fairly generic, and a little bit of whining to go along with it, and a little bit of SpongeBob, right? If you take a look at my Facebook profile, this is a little bit more professional. I still work at Comics Forge. I still went to University of Maryland College Park. I still live in Seattle. All right, I have fewer friends here, right? But then an awful lot of pictures and a lot of places on map is a goodly amount of subscribers to go along with that. This is a little bit also more relaxed, but a little bit different context than who I am. So we got a little bit of Full Metal Jacket. We got a little bit of Mixed Best behind the scenes horror movies. We talk about some politics on this one. Google Plus, no politics. Facebook, a little bit of politics, right? And we see some commonalities between the two, and we see how they're received and how they're done. This also ties into my comic book reading. This also ties into my Foursquare. Excuse me. You'll also kind of see where I do interesting things along the way. A little bit more of my photography than is usual over on G+. So this becomes much more of a showcase for the things that I am interested in. And then if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you actually kind of see where it's very much so more about how I want to portray myself in terms of my profession, right? And my profession is a security engineer. So when I see things like this, Dan, follow the United Parcel Service, not going to happen. I don't follow companies here. I follow people in terms of how I want to portray myself to a professional community. You will find almost no pictures about who I am or what I do for a hobby. I summarize what I do here. I have a very nice, clean photograph. I could improve my profile if I wanted to. I talk about where I work at and what I do and the previous places that I've worked at and other things that I've done. The education I've got that goes well beyond the standard run-of-the-mill that's over there at Google Plus or on Facebook. Because, all right, so again, this is my job, is to be certain things, and that I work here and I work here. I do these two things. I also contribute, I also write a lot, do a lot of business planning, was a program director, lots of advising, lots of project management, security architect, security engineer. So it's been a real sharp focus on just those things that I want an employer to actually take a look at. You can also see where I kind of get skills and expertise. This is a section of LinkedIn that kind of gives other people the idea of what I've done for other people on these companies. So you can see where other people have turned around and said, here's where I'm good at. They say, most people agree that I'm really, really good in security and investigations. That's where I've spent the majority of my career. I've spent the last 3 years in cloud computing, and other people also will agree with the idea that here I am doing stuff in cloud computing. And then program management, not so much. Again, program management, information security, network security, Flash, and then other things that go along with it, management, project management, computer security, technical writing, SharePoint, web development, and all the other things that I kind of work with, right? So I have a skill list, and then that skill list is really what your employer is going to be taking a look at. So the more people you can get to endorse your skill list, the better off you're going to be. The education, this goes straight on to your resume. You can do all sorts of things with your education. And then recommendations. Recommendations is interesting. I've actually had to use these a few times. One of the things I've noticed too is that some of these recommendations have got typos and are not spelled correctly. So if you bring them up into a spell checker, it'll actually show up that there's also problems in terms of how people spell. So when you have all these recommendations, they're really kind of important to kind of take a look at how people have recommended you for whatever position. These recommendations should be a whole more fresh if you could get them. Some of these are a little old, from 2009, 2010. All right, so it's definitely been, some of these are extraordinarily old when it comes to doing things. You can kind of see where they go back and forth into how other people view things. You can add a website, you can add your own blog, right? You can add other websites. Be very careful about what websites you put onto this, because if you put a non-professional website on it, then you can have a real problem. So I say that I work here, and I do. It's been a long time since I've written here at IT Toolbox, but this is a perfect way of showing off some of the things that I want to write about and things that are important to me in terms of setting up my professional reputation. I do not add my Twitter. I do not add very many interests. The only groups and associations that I put on here are the ones that are important to how I need to be portrayed to an employer, right? So you won't see any of my photography up here. You won't see any of the music that I do. You'll see nothing about punk rock. You'll see no tattoos. You'll see none of this stuff. And my personal information is also very much so deliberately not here, because I don't necessarily want people to contact me outside of the system. And then these are things that you can get in touch with me over. These are things I'm interested in, and then no applications. So my LinkedIn profile is really stripped down for what I need it to be. Some of the other things that's kind of interesting too is sometimes you get invitations from people, and you may not necessarily know them. So when you go into your invitations, you can say, Eric. Well, do I know Eric? Maybe not really. And that's why I'm really fussy about this. I don't really know any of these people. So it's not necessarily going to be someone that I'm going to want to have as a connection, because I don't know them and I don't know what they would be able to give me. So if we go to Eric here, and we're just going to pick on him because he's the first one in the lot, a blue chip accredited MBA, extensive track record. We have never worked with each other, and he does know people that I know, right? So he knows Clement Dupree, amazingly cool human being with the CISSP program, Lewis database, and other people. And he kind of says, okay, he's a second line contact. I don't know him, but these guys do. So if I'm really concerned about it, I can go ahead and say, hey, what do you know about Eric? Is he really a good guy? Is he someone that I want to be connected to? Robert Ellington Smith, president at Network Data Security. Steve Dorsey, Rick Oppenheimer, Ernie Hayden. So he's kind of important then, and I would be more likely to do this because I know Steve Dorsey is a very good person in information security. Rick Oppenheimer is brilliant, and Ernie Hayden is also equally brilliant in information security. So I would probably go ahead and pick up with him and go ahead and accept his invitation just based on the strength of these recommendations. And I share a group with him, which is also a really good one to kind of take a look at in terms of, are they current in their in what they're doing. So I would probably pick him up and accept his invitation. Other people, do I know? I don't know. How do I know these people? And that's where this is really important. When you don't see all of these, you kind of have to go, okay, I know Joni. Joni's awesome, right? I know Barbara. Barbara's awesome. But I don't necessarily know if I want to be connected in this way through this, right? And that's where we really kind of want to take a look at how this works. Even though Adam's probably a really nice person, if you don't know him from Adam, you don't want to connect. And that's the really important part about LinkedIn, is that in Facebook or in G+, we're going to willy-nilly connect with everybody and see who's who and what's what, because we take a much more informal approach. But LinkedIn, when we're taking this much more formal approach that we've got, then we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do, and we want to portray that image that we want to have people know about us. They could do and ask questions. If they don't know what a security architect is, I probably don't really want them to contact me, right? And that's another thing that you need to think about when you're doing LinkedIn, because again, it's a really important part of who you are, and this is something you would want to be able to give this LinkedIn profile to, so that they can go ahead and see it, right? This is your professional profile. Where on Facebook, it's tons more informal, right? There's just a ton of different things you can do, tons of different approaches. Now, the interesting part, though, is that in some respects, employers might ask you for your Facebook login or other data about your Facebook account, and you don't necessarily want to give them your Facebook account. If you give them your Facebook username and password, then you're basically violating Section 4 of Facebook's Terms of Service, and that's generally a bad thing. But I also want you to kind of put a different spin on this. If you're applying for a job and you're willing to give up a username and password to a service or product that you use because they ask you to, then what are they saying about their own view of information security, and what are they saying about their own view of privacy and data? There's a lot of questions that go along with that, and if they're asking you for your Facebook username and password, that's a bad thing, because if you think about it, right? If you think about it and you go to your other websites that you do, so if you go to your home site, one of the things that's really kind of interesting about this is that if you log out of my thing and then you go back log in, this account, my account, is tied in with Facebook, so it will automatically load in to my Facebook account here in a minute, and then take me back and then show me what my statistics are for my photography. Do I want an employer that I'm trying to impress over here with my LinkedIn account to have my Facebook account? And if they have my Facebook account login and username, then they can log into everything that is Facebook connected. That's your Pinterest, that's your Meetup, that's your picture directories, that's anything that allows the Facebook login for your system. So you're literally giving that employer an awful lot of power with your accounts, and I really, 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 really recommend that if an employer or during an interview asks for your Facebook username and password, that you absolutely deny and say no, and here's why. And the reason why is going to be is because if I give you my username and password now to my Facebook account, I'm violating a terms of service. And then how would you know that I wouldn't then turn around and give out my username and password to someone else along the way? So you would want to stick and say, privacy data is privacy data. I don't want to violate my terms of service. I wouldn't want to break any rules. I want to be a good employee and all the rest of it. And that my timeline is public and you're free to go through, and here's my Facebook URL if you want to check it out. Right? And make sure that your Facebook is absolutely clean, that you have no pictures of you heavy drinking. A little bit of candy is a good thing. Some of the interesting things, if you're into web development, if you're talking about web development a lot on your Facebook account, that's good. If you talk about economics and all the rest of it, you need to make sure your Facebook account is a little bit more plain vanilla than any other account that you would have. Again, you can have a bunch of really cool stuff in here, and you can have some kinds of racy stuff to go along the way, but the majority of your Facebook account should be pretty much so plain vanilla. The things you talk about in public, the things you'd say in the middle of a Starbucks or a restaurant or something else. Your Google Plus can be a little bit more to your taste and who you are. You can kind of see where I do a lot of videos here for Amazon and scripting and other stuff. But each one of these different networks portrays a different Dan. So which Dan am I really? And this is where this kind of comes into the whole process of trying to set down who you are. Your LinkedIn profile should be the one that you use on as an online resume. This should be who you are. This should be what you're about and who you are professionally. Your Facebook account can be a little bit more relaxed, but remember, no booze, no alcohol, no drugs, no wild partying, unless you want an employer to know about that. And some employers will literally judge you based on what you put on your Facebook account and choose not to hire you. If you're working for a company that in their job description says must be Christian, or and must live by Christian ideals, and you have a Facebook full of tattoos and punk rock and heavy metal, and people doing the whole heavy metal devil sign and all the rest of it, well, they're looking at your Facebook and they're Christian values and heavy metal deathcore guar kind of music. They're not going to be able to match those two, and you probably won't get the job to begin with. So your Facebook account, because it is such a link and a vital lifeline, do not give away your username and password, and it's because other people can access any one of your Facebook linked accounts, like your Pinterest, and again, in my case, SmugMug, or any other site you've linked through to Facebook, so you can use that. But the other thing too is that your Facebook should be a reflection of you, but a cleaner reflection of you. And again, your Google Plus can be a little bit cleaner. No one ever asks you for, or at least I've never heard of yet, anybody asking for your Google password, username and password, because that would be crazy, right? That's crazy talk when it comes to all your Google associated things, Gmail and your Chrome and your web browsing history and all the other things you do not want people to know about you. So if anyone was to ask you for your G Plus profile, I would turn around and say no as well, because there's certain things I don't necessarily want people to know about. So when you're going through and you're doing your part in your process of what kind of profile you want, Google Plus, you can be a little bit cleaner, you can be a little bit who you are. Again, no drugs, no alcohol, no wild parties, no puking into a toilet, none of that stuff. And your Facebook account, you have to think about it being public. These are things you would say in the middle of a Starbucks coffee shop at the top of your lungs. And yeah, I would talk about behind the scenes at horror movies because it's cute. I would talk about a remake of Full Metal Jacket in terms of Full Metal Christmas and using the little Santa elves and little reindeer and all the rest of it. I'm proud of the people I associate with, and I'm good with the pictures I take because a lot of them are event pictures. So they're kind of important when it comes to that. My LinkedIn is my absolutely professional profile. This is what I want an employer to see. This is who I want it to be. This is how I want them to understand who I am and who I associate with and all the rest of it. So that's really kind of important on this one. And then you can even find different me's. So it's really kind of funny. But then we come to the resume. Now the resume is going to be kind of interesting. This is just a real simple standard resume. Very plain. It's me. Here's your address. Here's your city, state, objective. This resume is built exactly for automated resume readers. It's not built for anything. All the fluff is out. There's hard stop line returns and all the rest of it. It's very plain. It's very ugly, but it's great if you're going to post your resume on something like Dice or CareerBuilder or Monster.com, because they will suck in these resumes, put them into a big database, and then try to figure out if they want to hire you or not. So we put in an objective. What do I want to do? Right? The ideal job will focus on project management, process innovation within an organization. These are things I want to do. The ideal job will have a customer focus, help manage and maintain client expectation processes. As well, the ideal job will focus on things I'm interested in: cloud computing, security, problem solving difficult customer issues, right? And innovation. Innovation is always a really interesting word to put in an objective. Right? What are your hardcore skills? And a very short list. Right? Don't put Microsoft Office if you're not going for a secretary. If you're going for what this resume is labeled out as, a project manager, a technical project manager, then you're going to put in your skills that you understand: Cisco, cloud computing, Amazon Web Services. You're going to talk about Windows Server 2012, 2008, 2003. You're going to talk about Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows Vista, unfortunately, and all the other things that you do. And then your professional experience. Where have you worked, right? And this resume is a little bit dated. I haven't updated it in over 2 years, right? What did you do? I oversaw a team of 30 personnel to blah. This is what I did. Lead design for the ABET accreditation, upgraded teaching systems, back-end systems in support of learning services using AWS. So Amazon Web Services tied into it. Cloud computing, Cisco, AWS. Good to go. Technology courses, Web 2.0 programming, web development, information security. These are all things I did. These are the LMSs that I use: Blackboard modules, right, with video and podcasts and text-based. Also worked with another open source system, right? So these are all things that are going to take a look at, and these are all based on keywords, right? These keywords: Moodle, Web 2.0, Amazon Web Services, lead, team. These are all things that people are going to look for when they're looking for a resume. And then here I was, a consultant over at Microsoft Game Studios, all right, and then some freelance gigging that I did for about 3 months, 4 months when I felt like it, right? And then Primera Blue Cross, and then Breakwater, and then Computer Sciences. And go back. You don't need to go back like 30 years. You only really want to highlight the last like maybe 7 years of where you've been working, right? Especially on a short resume like this. Then where I've been, what I did, how did I teach, other things that are really important. Publication history with what I do. Publication is very important, right? And there's a couple new books that I need to put in here and other things to go along with it, right? And then my education, what have I gotten a degree in? And then what am I a member of? Who are the groups I'm proud to associate with in terms of working with? So I belong to the Northwest Entrepreneurial Network, board of advisors for a couple of different companies. I work with Seattle 2.0, Lunch 2.0, and Agora, and these are all kind of important groups that I work with. An employer will take a look at who I'm a member of or what I work with in terms of how I'm going to take a look at all the rest of the processes that go along with it. If I'm a member of these, then these are maybe people that others are going to want to sell to. So if I go to a company that sells components or sells hardware or sells software, they're going to take a look at my member of, and they're going to say, okay, he's a link in there. He can talk well about my company, right? So that's kind of that idea. And this is just a really quick and dirty resume that's really built around automated data processing systems, right? Now, there's the pretty resume. This is a resume that was built for humans, right? This is a resume that you would bring into your interview, right? It's beautifully formatted. It's got really gorgeous things. So your name and your credentials that go along with it, your address, your phone number, your email. And it's okay if this is 2 lines. Your summary should match the same summary as you have over here on your other resume, right? And then experience. What am I doing? Who am I working with, right? And what else have I done, right? Where have I worked? Who have I taken a look at? And all the rest of it. So this is the really important resume that you bring copies with to your new business, right? Or to your job interview. So again, you want to focus on capabilities and strengths, and then your education. Where did you actually get your education from, and all the rest of it. Try to keep it at 3 pages. You really want to try to keep it at 3 pages. This resume goes back a long time. This resume goes back 12 years. If you're going for a job that requires a lot of writing, then you can drop the length of what you're doing and go ahead and put in your writing publication history. Right? It all depends on what kind of job you're going for. So you have this for the automated systems, and then you have this for what you actually bring into your job interview, right? This resume, your resume, should really match what you have on LinkedIn, right? It should be almost identical to what you're doing. As you can see, the resume I'm using, they're both a little out of date. There are things I should put in here, right? So one of the things I may have to explain is, why did I become an instructor? So if I wanted to go back and work at a place like Microsoft, I would have to explain why I did some of the things I did, right? Or why am I doing instructing and chief operations officer for a company? Shouldn't I be blah, doing something completely different? All right, you can see where I wrote. If I have a writing, I need to show that I actually have written professionally, right? And then the other things that I've kind of done with this whole thing, right, in terms of how it looked. If they ask me for my Facebook, I want to make sure that my Facebook is clean, right? That there's no drinking, no drugs, no punk rock music, no heavy metal music, not things that are outside the social norm. So you would want to make sure that you really do clean up some of your Facebook if you think that someone's going to ask you for your Facebook account. If they ask you for your Facebook username and password, the answer to give them is no, because it's a trust issue. If I give you my username and password to an account that would violate a terms of service for a service I use over on Facebook, then how can you trust me to not give away my username and password to the company assets? And that's generally one that starts a really interesting conversation with a company in the middle of an interview. And it's a good conversation to have. And if they persist in wanting your Facebook, this is probably not a company that anyone wants to go work for. It's not a wise choice. And it's not a wise choice because it gives them access to a ton of other stuff that's linked through your Facebook account, right? Again, depending on what you've got, where you are, and how much other stuff you've linked into Facebook, if you give them your Facebook account, you are giving them the keys of the kingdom to your life. If anyone was to ever ask you for your Google information, right, to your Gmail, and that will include all the tracking that Google does on you as well, this is not a company anyone wants to go work for. Because if you give them your email, you voluntarily sign all this stuff over by giving them the keys to the kingdom and violating those terms of service, then it's generally a bad thing to be doing. It's not something that you want to do. And the really good argument about all this is that if I can't do this, and it's violating terms of service, and it's generally a bad idea. So when you're getting ready to go for a job, make sure that you have your resume that's ugly and dirty but perfect for being sucked into the big machines over there at Dice and Career Builder and Monster.com. When you walk in, you have a really nice, clean, beautifully presented resume that's been spell checked and all the rest of it. Make sure this resume matches your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that if they ask you for your Facebook account, you just say no, or here's the URL. It's all public anyways. And if they ask you for your Google account information, just stop. This is not a company you want to go work for. But that's essentially what you want to do when you're taking a look at social media and you're taking a look at how to present yourself and the style that you want to do. Your LinkedIn is your professional. Your Facebook is a little bit more relaxed, but it still should be represent your interests in line with your resume. And your Google Plus can be a little bit more free and clean. It's not generally full public information unless you make it that way. Most people on G Plus tend to publish either public or limited. So you can always limit it just to your circles. And it's always a good idea to not do public all the time. Whenever you're making entries on social media, you really don't want people knowing that you were doing all these things over the weekend. So that's how you want to kind of take a look at it and kind of process it. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to just drop me a note and ask.